So they put City under pressure, but what did they do with the ball when they won it back, or what did they do in possession? Here we can see some really positive examples, but crucially City, what they're doing is they're forcing Arsenal play wide. So Partey comes onto the ball, he plays the ball out towards the left-hand touchline to Martinelli. City adopt, as I've said before, a relatively narrow formation, and the point is that they're extremely disciplined about getting into this narrow formation, often with two covering midfielders, in this case Silva and De Bruyne ahead of them, forcing Martinelli into a wide left shooting position. So they do get a shot. I don't think this is one on target, but it's from a narrow angle, so relatively difficult to score from. Also, they're closing down a lot of the opportunities to cut the ball back, for example, to Saka there on the right hand side. In this other passage of play, what happens here is that Bernardo Silva uncharacteristically gives the ball away. Arsenal are then able to break. But the point of these boxes here is that Arsenal are prevented access to that central region by the defensive block of Manchester City. I think it's Rodri and Cancelo. Here Martinelli, who had the most shots for Arsenal, I think had 5 shots. I think a couple of other players had one each. So he was very prominent. He was playing on the left-hand side, so you'd expect him to be wide. But the point here is that City are forcing Arsenal in general to play the ball wide, and you end up with quite a similar scenario here, where Martinelli does get a shot in on goal, but his options are restricted, and it's a relatively low probability scoring opportunity. Arsenal put Manchester City under a lot of pressure in this match. They were able to move the ball effectively, progressively through the thirds, but they weren't able to generate a huge number of shots. And if you don't shoot, you don't score. So what this is measuring in the blue is opposition shots against Manchester City. So the latest numbers would be the Arsenal match, of course. It then looks at that versus the amount of touches that you have in the attacking third, because it's important to do this with this kind of data rather than just looking at the volume overall, because if you hardly have any of the ball, then obviously you're not going to take very many shots. So this is looking at a ratio here of the number of shots taken, in this case by Arsenal, per touch in the attacking third, and we can see there that the number 0.06 is really low. I think they took 7 shots in the match. Manchester City took many more. Of course, the sending off and how that affected the second half and the game state there would have a big influence. But the point remains, and if you rewatch the match, I think this is really clear. Arsenal do a lot of things really, really effectively. They put Manchester City under a lot of pressure. They're able to move the ball through the thirds, and they're able to pin Manchester City back, but they're not able to convert those into great goal-scoring opportunities. And it's not just the second half. You can see that in the first half as well. So what we're seeing in this analysis here is that Arsenal did a lot of things really, really well, and would provide something of a blueprint to other Premier League opposition for Manchester City in the coming weeks and months. But again, they're putting Manchester City under a lot of pressure. They're progressing the ball forward through the lines really effectively, but they didn't take very many shots, and the shots that they took were relatively low probability opportunities, which is reflected in the 1 xG that they had. Martinelli had 5 of the shots, as I mentioned earlier. You can see towards the right hand side that a lot of those shots were towards the left hand side of Manchester City's penalty box. You can see by contrast, yes, the effect of the sending off and what happened in the second half would play into this, but you can see how Manchester City, as is characteristic of their teams, just look at the concentration of shots and chances that they have in and around the centre rather than on the periphery, on the side of the penalty box. This is why they score so many goals. But the thing that marks out Manchester City and why I believe that they are going to win the league, probably in the end quite comfortably, is actually their defensive organisation, which isn't sort of an exciting thing to talk about as other things in football, but I think it's the thing that distinguishes them for this season at least versus their opposition. And thank you very much for listening. If you like this video, please express that by hitting the like button. While you're there, you may as well subscribe to the channel. And why not leave me a comment with your views, and I'll get back to you. What we like to do on TiVo is observe how the match plays out. Many people do that, but combine that with the use of data to take a lot of the subjectivity out of the discussion. Because I did feel that the commentary and the analysis around this particular match was actually not a good representation of what actually unfolded.